You can hear me now? Ah. Ha. How stupid.
So it's working.
I think so. I don't know what happened. All right, well, I think we're on. Okay, let's go. Well, that's 5 minutes of my life I'll never get back. And now you won't know. You will never know what Leigh-Ann and I were talking about. That was so much fun.
They can hear us.
We were having. Oh, shit.
Hallelujah.
Are they back? Oh, they're back. Okay. Damn it.
Be on your best behavior.
Oh,
Or
system was offline. Lemiro, I love it. All right, so what I said, because this is actually quite funny. Leigh-Ann walked in here this morning. I said to her, as I do on a Monday, like, how was your weekend? And she...
And you thought I said, no good.
Yeah, not good.
Not good.
I thought I heard you saying, no,
not good.
Because you almost, I think you moved your head like this, but you were actually saying, good.
Yeah, good.
I had a good weekend. So I immediately thought, shit, how do I deal with this? I'm not used to people going, not good.
And what is not good? How bad could it be?
Well, I immediately assumed that she'd been like locked in her bathroom for the whole weekend and like
tortured with hot irons for the whole weekend. Just couldn't get free. Haven't told anyone yet.
Maimed.
But I'm here. These things happen again.
Jeez. I had the most horrible visions in my head for that 5 seconds. And you were like, no, I said good. I must have looked like, because it was not a good facial expression.
No.
On my side. Oh,
but no, God. All was good.
All right. So we've sorted out our this is going to make everyone laugh, especially Ryan and Simphiwe and the rest of them, because it's such an obvious thing. It's like, we should have, I don't know, we must have pressed something that we didn't or whatever, but we're there now. All right. So listen, weekend is over. Back to work. New month.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we got shit to do. I mean, technically, Friday was already the new month, but you know what?
It's the end of Q1.
Yeah. Is that what it is? Is that what they say? No, it can't be.
It is
2 months?
3 months, January, February, March.
March isn't finished.
Oh, that's true. Sorry, I work a month ahead on everything.
Yes.
I'm already planning Christmas
you
stuff.
Must be careful what you say this morning. You're setting a lot of cats among pigeons. Yes, sis. I don't know what to do with you. I had a very weird weekend. A great weekend, but very weird. So first thing is, I definitely broke the no drinking rule on Friday.
Oh, because first time.
Yeah, well, one of my mates is out here. He's been flying planes in dangerous war zones.
Yes, I know the one.
Yeah, and so he said to me, let's go out for drinks. And I didn't have, so I was going to meet Randall from Idols for dinner, right? And we were going to go somewhere in Pretoria because he now works on that side. So went out in Pretoria. Eventually there ended up being like 10 people at our table.
And it was meant to be just the two of you.
But they just joined. All these people just joined. Eventually it was like a crew. And one of the people was Rian van Heerden, right? And Rian said to me, Beerman, he wanted to go to some place that I've never been to before, right? Called Padstal.
Oh my goodness.
No, wait. I have nothing shit to say about this place, actually. But what a weird experience. So I said, you know what? In for a penny, in for a pound, let's go. So we went to this place. They had it's like a proper Afrikaans place. And one of the guys who's with us was black. So I was like, I looked at him and said, you better stay close to us. He's like, I'm not worried about you. This is fine. I'm absolutely fine with this. So I thought, okay, well, he's brave and I'm not. So we walk into this place. First of all, the guy who meets us at the door, which already makes me a bit nervous. This guy meets you at the door.
Yeah.
He's like, there's a big crew of you. You come straight through to VIP, which I hate because that's usually a boring place, right? Anyway, we go through and they look after us like gold, but the people there are really nice. So there was no need for us to be treated like celebrities.
So hang on, is this like a nightclub?
It's like a bar.
Okay.
Okay, but they got singers and they've got people sockieing, and it's like a whole Pretoria thing that I didn't. Yeah. And honestly, I'd never seen anything like it. I can tell you straight up, it's nothing that I would have ever been to before. It's very, very odd. So we end up having like a couple of drinks there. It's lots of fun. People are very friendly. It was really cool. And I got home at like 12:31ish, which is not so bad. And I actually really enjoyed it. Like, you've got to sometimes get out of your comfort zone, not just do the same thing, because I met people that I'd never met anywhere else and had conversations I would never have had anywhere else. So you've got to kind of force yourself to do fun stuff every now and then, even if you don't think it's going to be fun. Because you know me, my default position is always to say no to everything.
Yeah.
And then when I get there, if I have said, on the rare occasion I've said yes, and I get there and I'm like, oh, this is actually not so bad. But I thought it would be worse.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was fun. Saturday, I went to these friends of mine who had a garden lunch party.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, apart from the best pasta ever, oh my God, I'm still like, I closed my eyes last night. I was like, I'm a little bit hungry as I was going to sleep. But I thought, after that pasta I had on Saturday, like nothing will compare. You know, you just eating anything else.
A restaurant made it?
No, she
Italians?
made it. She made it herself. I wish. I mean, it was like she's just this brilliantly talented friend of mine who can cook like anything. Anyway, she made this basil pesto pasta, which was just, oh my God, it was good. Anyway, I don't know what she did in there, what she uses, because I know nothing about the kitchen.
It'll be very, very simple ingredients.
Yes.
Good quality, cooked well.
So good. So anyway, that was amazing. And the company was fantastic and just really lovely people. Had an awesome afternoon. And then went to see Jimmy Carr doing his comedy in Pretoria again, which was also lots of fun. So I had a really bumper-packed weekend, and I haven't done that for a while. It was nice to do.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And all that time I was being tortured all alone in my bathroom. You were flitting about.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, my God. It's usually the unplanned events that turn out to be the best, says Eminem. Yeah. Exactly. Gareth, why do you bother stopping drinking? Hey, I did it.
You did very well.
Yeah. But I mean, I can pick it up again now. It's not like I'm not an alcoholic who needs to report in to my sponsor and say, hey, I had a drink. I'm telling all of you because I'm not embarrassed. I can do what I want, grown adult. But I wanted to try to see what the result is. Listen, I'll tell you, Saturday I wasn't feeling as good as I usually do. So I'm probably going to go back to the not drinking for a little bit longer. But we'll see. We'll see. Again, I imposed this rule on myself. I will decide when to end it. That's all.
At least you were able to stop. There was someone this morning who hadn't stopped on my way in.
Oh yeah.
So in the dark early hours of the morning, he was standing at a traffic light, beer in the hand.
Oh my. On a Monday morning.
Yeah, big fat beer. And he was waiting for the traffic light. I was sitting at it. It was red. Went green for me and red for him, and that's when he started walking. He got it totally wrong.
Shame, man. To be still drinking on a Monday morning. All your friends have gone home. Everybody that in fact, even the people who you don't like have gone home.
Yeah,
you're on your own,
setting yourself up for a horrible, horrible day,
horrible week. Because Monday, you don't get into that properly, then the whole week is a disaster. So it's really important you get into Monday properly.
No, look, he could barely stand. He was doubled over.
Shame.
Not good.
Shame.
That's what not good is.
Yeah, if you asked him about his weekend, he'd say,
not good.
Not good. No. It's so funny. I read through a list of like words that should be pronounced like ancient Greek heroes, but they're actually like ridiculous words. And Leigh-Ann thinks this is super funny, so I'm going to give them to you. Instead of articles, say articles.
Articles.
Instead of bicycles, say bicycles. Or vehicles.
That's my favorite one, vehicles.
Vehicles. Tentacles for tentacles. Spectacles. Are you wearing your spectacles?
I am.
Yeah?
I can't see through them, though.
Isn't that the whole point of spectacles?
Well, they're an older script now, you have to, they're about 2 years old.
So what is it, like blurry?
Yes.
So
I generally...
The whole point of glasses is that it's not blurry and you're wearing blurry glasses.
Yeah. I generally, I've never been able to see far.
So what can you see now?
No, man, it's not so bad. But if I read something on my phone...
I'm letting this woman behind the wheel of a car. Huh?
I've got to like pull the thing closer and further. But I'm getting new ones. I'm just waiting for them. Do you know how much it costs for a pair of glasses? Bearing in mind, I have to have multifocals.
But don't you have a medical aid covering that?
Yes, medical aid. Let's talk about that on optical. They cover one pair of spectacles.
Yes.
Per year.
That it. But how many do you need?
You only need one every 3 years, say,
so,
4 years.
Should be all right then. But how many have you gone through already? And it's only March.
How much do they cover by? 1,500 Rand.
And how much are spectacles?
17,000 Rand.
You're joking.
I'm not. 17,000 Rand.
I've heard of bicycles that cost several
My first
thousand
car
rand.
was 30,000 rand.
That's insane. That's like a new iPhone.
So it was
Just for bits of glass that you could look through so that you can know. Oh no, come on.
promise
Who's
you.
ripping you off?
No, that's
Someone saw you coming, literally, and you didn't see them.
no, that's the thing.
You sure
know,
you read it right with your blurry glasses? It's like 1,700 and you read 17,000.
No, I was just as shocked as you. So I paid a 5,000 rand deposit, which was the end of the month. And I thought, hell, I mean, that's like the most I'm going to put down now. And they said they would only start manufacturing them when they were fully paid up.
Oh, they're
But
extorting.
then I
They're
said to
extorting
them-
money from you. They're like holding you. Where? You won't be able to see unless you pay us money.
So I went
That guy
back to
must
them.
have enormous testicles to be treating you like that.
They said, because they had a special on at the time where you could get a second frame for free or a second pair of glasses. So I thought, oh, well, that's nice. They can turn them into sunglasses for you or just in case you lose
Those
a
were in the
pair.
days where you had like an extra.
And also when I used to go out in the sun.
Which you don't do anymore because you're being tortured in your bathroom all week.
So I got home and I looked at this quote again and I thought, I wonder if maybe the frames were free and the lenses weren't, because the lenses are the expensive part.
Oh, really?
They do all
really?
sorts of things to the
I
lenses.
didn't know that. No, wait, just hang on. Explain it to me again. Like,
you see, they've got to bend them in a certain way. And
is that why you wear glasses on your eyes instead of around your asshole? Okay. I see. Because of the lenses. Shit, you must think I'm really dumb.
in the land of the blind, the one eye is king.
Hang on. So the lenses are the expensive part.
Yeah, the frames don't do anything for you, but they just hold the lenses.
But who's making these? Carl Zeiss making them himself in a factory in Switzerland?
They do so many things these days. There's anti this and extra that and films.
But get the normal. Someone says here, just buy 2 bottles of Coke and you're sorted. Those old Coke bottles, you just put them on.
No, but it's so strange. As soon as I said to them, look, is this for 2 pairs of glasses?
Use Scooby wire and 2 bottom of the Coke bottles.
And they said, no, that's just for the 1 pair. The other one's completely free. Just imagine if there were 2 on there, how much it would have been. Well, you could just double it. Anyway,
imagine if you took 17,000 and
you doubled it.
Wait a minute. You're saying a lot of obvious stuff this morning. I think you can't see properly.
So I said to them, this is ridiculous. I'm actually not.
Your glasses for your brain.
I'm not paying this amount of money.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Did you stomp?
Yeah. I said, look, maybe another time, but something needs to happen here. 17,000 rand.
Sure. Who has, I don't know anyone. Maybe 2-3 people who have got like enough money for buying a country, but the rest of us normal people, he's keeping 17,000 rand at bay. Oh, I've just saved this in case of a rainy day.
Gosh.
If you have, congratulations, by the way.
So came back with a much better quote, 13,000. So if you
talked them down.
Yes. And they say, look, they're not going to be as amazing as they were going to be.
So what, you can see?
I'm like, just as long as I can see.
So when are you getting these new ones? Because right now, you don't know where the fuck I am. You're not even looking in the right place.
Hopefully this week. And they're just down the road, by the way. So it's not like I went to, somewhere super fancy or anything. They're a very good, they're better than just optometrists.
Ryan says, I'll just go to Clicks for the cheap 100 rand ones.
Yeah, those, you see, I have an astigmatism. I'm farsighted. I'm becoming nearsighted. I'm becoming, everything's happening with age.
You're just a disaster. I was in the kitchen now making this coffee, and I looked into the bright lights by mistake, right? They got quite bright lights in there. Suddenly thought, it took a little while for them to reset. I was like, I'm not going to bring this up with Leigh-Ann because I'm sure she's got much bigger problems. And now you forced me to bring it up.
No, it's very true.
Hey,
all sorts of things start happening.
So look at this. Arbot says, get a quote from Specsavers, less than 2,000 rand. Wow. And then CyberRags says, CyberRags. I love that. Like, I'm not sure if that's meant to be like a poverty thing. CyberRags. My bifocals cost about 5,000 rand with Specsavers and got good quality 2 years ago, and used them riding my motorbike. My reading glasses also cost about the same over a year ago.
So mine are combined into one. So take your 2 pairs of glasses and put them into one, to be fair, if we want to just make it a little bit more fair.
Actually, Carl just said his are like Tom Ford frames. So those are 10K on their own.
There you go.
And his glasses cost him 20. So there we go. You know what? Actually, like that just proves that it's not such a thing to say, well, the lenses are the expensive part.
Yeah, you see.
Because you probably can get, if you buy designer. Yeah, that's right. What are you rummaging in your bag for?
I've actually got the quote here.
Oh, but you can't see it.
I can't see it.
Let me see if that's 17,000, because you can't read.
No, you have a look at it.
Let's see.
Don't say the name of the place.
Right,
They're very good. They
have a
help
look.
people with strokes and things.
Let's have a look. That's 17,168 rand and 90 cents.
Hmm.
I mean, look at all the stuff on here, though.
Yeah. So this is before they reduced it.
Right varifocal distance to near. It's got a whole lot of numbers. Left varifocal distance to near. Then there's dynamic.
That's the name of the lens.
Then there's high vision Myrio.
Yeah, for the lens.
They're taking the piss. That's 4,000 rand on high vision Myrio.
Hmm.
There's nothing. There's no such thing.
There's no such thing.
Then Christie's CS5.
That's the frame.
No, I'm sure that Christie's is an auction house. You've just bought a country house in England. You just didn't know about it. Then you get an optometric examination, which should be free, but they've charged you 547 rand for that.
It was a lot, though. My eye health is perfect, by the way.
Photography of fundus.
Yes, I had to take my pants off for that.
Leigh-Ann, these people are taking advantage of you. You know what? I'm starting to think you were tortured. What is photography of fundus?
So
you had two of those.
Well, I've got two fundi, don't I?
There's quantity 2. 269 rand.
Because I have two eyes.
Fundus.
Yes. I think it's because of glaucoma and stuff they have to check for.
And then these people are really taking the piss. Then they say, do not use.
Oh.
Do not use one. You had one of those for 190 rand.
Oh, those were eye drops. Damn, I've used them all weekend. No wonder I can't see.
Oh my God.
Because I have something called dry eye syndrome.
I am telling you, they're taking advantage of you here. The glasses, sure. I mean, that's expensive. Again, it's still the majority of it. But this photography of fundus and do not use. I'm very out.
Well, like Sugar Chabalala says, can you see into the future? Well, now I'll never know because I'm never going to have the fancy ones.
With those glasses, you should be able to see into the future, Sugar. I love that. Oh my God. All right. Well, we got so much to get into today. I have to show you this video. You know how I love people with funny voices, and especially when they don't know that they've got a funny voice, and then they're interviewed on TV. So this is an athlete. I think she's at some kind of sprint championship. Might even be the one that guy who was on the show, Tian, the other day was at. But she's from Holland, yeah. And here she's she's being interviewed by an English journalist or reporter. And I swear to God, like if you close your eyes, you're like, it's Mickey Mouse.
Really?
Listen.
Oh, no.
It's so funny. I love this.
When you're putting your mind to it, you know exactly what to do indoors. How was that for you?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, it was such a strong race. We were all running so fast, multiple running in the 50s, so I knew I had to go out fast. I had Lieke in front of me, so I wanted to be in front, and I could hear how brave she was behind me, so I was like, okay, this is good, now we keep going, and this crowd is so amazing.
Right?
Oh, shame. I wonder when her balls are going to drop.
The people who actually have that kind of a voice in real life. It's so great.
But it's as if she has no idea. But her friend knows because her friend wants to burst out laughing.
Her friend looks like she is going to start laughing, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But listen, when you're an athlete like that, you can sound like anything.
So Louis says, I imagine the conversation that you and Leigh-Ann are having with the glasses is the type of conversation old people at the retirement home have around breakfast.
We have
before their
earned
morning work.
the right, okay? We've waited many years to be able to do that. Our whole lives.
Leigh-Ann was saying she's working with a Gen Z, and she was like,
I said, when I found out.
Quite shocked.
Yeah. I said to her, wait a minute, that makes you Gen Z. She said, yes, Gen Z have entered the workplace.
Ta-da. That's so great.
So yeah, I figured out I'm 10 years younger than her mother.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah. Also, I'm working with people that we worked with at 5FM.
People we worked with. Are they still alive?
No, I barely. I'm working with their children. Their children are in my office.
Well, You know what? There's no need for this. I think we must have your photography of fundus done again.
Listen, I thought it was quite fun.
I don't know what that is, but a lot of people are suggesting that they think there's something wrong.
Yeah, someone said I should not have been removing my pants.
Probably, yeah. I mean, how long is this going to take you to figure out this is not the thing to do, right? Jesus.
No, but it's quite amazing. They with my mom after her stroke, they put her in front of a computer screen and they've got little things for her to follow with her eyes. And they figure out like
Mario
how
Brothers.
fast your eye moves, almost, and dots and things. And with her, they gave her. You're going to think this sounds ridiculous.
Go on.
But they gave her something called prism glasses. And those have actually got slices through the glass, vertical slices.
Yes.
Almost like the behind
It's like
you.
the slit experiment that they do in particle physics.
Oh, I wouldn't know about that.
Doesn't
I
matter.
had
Go
other
on.
slit experiences, but not that one. And yeah, she actually looks through these prism things to stop seeing seeing double. So who knows?
Oh, you just put her in prison, solve the problem. Yeah. So Louis says, I just shat myself when that woman started speaking. Yeah. Yeah. And then there was a woman who was interviewed who had unsuccessful throat surgery. The interviewer could not stop laughing.
Oh, God.
Well, the person who, immediately pops into my head is like Robert Kennedy Jr.
Did he always sound like that?
No, he had there's some medical weird thing happened to the guy, and he can't speak, so he's learned to speak differently. It's very odd. I mean, you get over it, but I listened to a woman on a podcast. I listened to all these bizarre history podcasts. This woman was talking about like life in Tudor England. Yes, I know. This is the kind of stuff I listen to.
Mm-hmm. You're forgiven.
But she would, everything she said, she would have a little wobble in it. But eventually, it's amazing how the ear gets attuned to people like that. If you listen to them long enough, like by the end of the podcast, I was hearing everything she had to say. At the beginning, I was like, turn it up.
Yeah, yeah.
But she was going, well, when King Henry VIII got married to his sixth wife, he was very young, but enormously fat. And by the end of it, I was making perfect sense of her.
It's like going to a strange village where they've got an accent just for the village, and you can't pick it up.
Yeah.
But it also that throat thing reminds me of that clip that goes around with that little kid in the hospital. His dad, I think, is visiting a man who's had throat surgery from throat cancer.
Yeah.
And the man's talking like through a machine thing.
Yes, through that the esophagus.
This little kid, he must be like 4, is completely fascinated and looks at him and goes, he carries on with this deadpan face.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Gotta love kids' honesty.
Yeah, you see, the problem is I'm still like that kid. If someone says something, I zero in. I was at that Jimmy Carr show and a dwarf in a wheelchair went past.
Wow.
And I followed him for a little bit. And all the other people I was with had to come and fetch me.
Yeah, you do have a fascination.
It's not, I thought, wow, a dwarf and a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
I hope he's going to laugh, I hope it's going to be a good show. Jimmy Carr went for the jugular.
Did he single out certain people?
Oh yeah, he because there was it was so funny. Like there were some people in the audience who were like heckling him. He had something for all of them.
Yeah,
so clever, so quick,
very cutthroat,
so quick. And I think some people arrived assuming he was just going to tell very clean jokes, because you sometimes hear, like, especially when he went down the religion path, or like murdering your child or whatever, because he did that stuff.
Yeah.
And then there were some murmurs, and I thought, did you guys not, like, have you done no research? Do you know nothing? I'm like, who did someone gift you these tickets anonymously and you just decided you were going to come? It boggles my mind that people go out without knowing what they're about to discover. Then, instead of being happily surprised that they've discovered something novel, they're like, oh, well. Because you can hear like that, when a crowd makes that. I mean, it wasn't, it was a hugely successful show, so don't get me wrong. Went very, very well. And I think everybody by and large loved it. But you could hear there were some people in the crowd who were like,
You see, I think a lot of people only see him in his TV footage or footage that's safe for TV.
oh, right. So they don't know that he's
They don't know
filthy.
how deep and dark and dirty you can get.
He's filthy.
Yeah.
Anyway, this couple sat in front of me. They're from the East Rand somewhere. Well, no, they lied. They're definitely from the East Rand, but he said he's originally from Velkom. And whenever I meet anyone from Velkom, I always have the discussion with them. I was like, circles, because they've got traffic circles, churches, churches on every corner. Well, they're no corners because it's all circles. And fights.
Fights.
Always fights. Witbank is also bad, but Velkom is like the capital of fights.
My mom is from Velkom. Well, she was actually born in
well, before the stroke, she had it. She did MMA. I mean, she was like, she's hardcore.
But the conversation always goes back to mining and these like bilingual schools for my mom and her friends. These schools that you just speak English to your Afrikaans friends and they speak Afrikaans to you.
Velkom is a very strange place. If you haven't been there before, I've got to tell you, like, first of all, don't. Because really, it's not like a tourist trap, It's not like you're going to go in there.
No, I mean,
so take pictures of the beautiful rubbish dump
or mine dumps.
It's the whole place is a dump, if you ask me. But the fights, and I think to myself, what a horrible thing to be trapped there for your life. Like that's where you live all your life, Yeah. So glad that I was just geographically privileged. Also like being born in Yemen. I mean, like you're just fucked. Afghanistan.
I often think about that.
Afghanistan.
Being born in South Africa is like...
Well, we got 50-50 because there are worse and better places in South Africa. I mean, there are places that it's not so bad to be born in South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, just with the general climate, it's one of the better places to be, even though it can be pretty shitty.
But there are very bad places in the world. Like you just think, wow, I'm glad my parents decided to give birth to me there. Like, I mean, I've got a friend who was born in PE. Imagine that. Ugh, get the chills down my spine. And that's so unfair. All right, let's get into some sport. Good posture is a good place to start, James, especially because you really don't know what you did to get it wrong this morning. No.
I don't know either.
Oh, well.
But I apologize.
All right, James is here. He's going to give us a rundown. James is the new producer on the show, everybody. And he's here in the studio this morning to help us out with some sport. What do you got?
I'm going to try help us out with some sport. We're going to start with the rugby.
All right.
We got the URC this weekend. Lions took on the Sharks.
By the way, I've got to say this is brought to you, as is all of our sport, Fridays and Mondays, by Superbets. So it's our little recap of what Ben threw forward to. All right, so rugby, go on.
Lions took on the Sharks at the Emirates this weekend, 40-10 to the Lions, which is insane. Bulls took on the Stormers, 40-22.
Jeez.
The Bulls are now up to second on the log, just behind Leinster in the URC.
Apparently there was a big crowd at Loftus.
Yeah, huge. Sold out. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's a return to sanity in Pretoria. I guess the people who weren't at Jimmy Carr were at Loftus. Maybe some of them got the tickets mixed up, and those are the ones who were going.
That's what happened.
Okay.
On to football and the Premier League. Man City took on Man United in the Manchester Derby. 3-1 for Man City, huge. Luton took on Aston Villa, 2-3 to Aston Villa. And then Forest took on Liverpool. Liverpool scoring a goal in the very, very last minute of that game gave me heart palpitations. So that was great. It woke me up for the weekend. The battle of the top of the Premier League intensifies as Man City and Liverpool are ever closer points-wise. So it's getting exciting for football fans. Test cricket-wise, first test New Zealand versus Australia. Australia won by 172 runs. Sure, I have my notes all over the place. That's not good.
Okay, so far you're doing quite well.
Thank you.
Almost sounds like you know what you're talking about. All right.
The hosts were dismissed for 196 before lunch on day 4 as Australia went 1-0 up in the 2-match series.
Okay.
The defeat leaves the Black Caps with only 1 win in 24 tests against their nearest neighbours.
Okay, you sound marginally better than those girls who you can tell were only chosen to be commentators because they're girls.
Wow.
But you're better than them. So we're getting there.
That's good.
I don't like being judged on the spot.
By next week, you'll be by next week you'll be at levels that I think our audience might accept.
I'll be top level. I can do sport every week, huh?
Sugar says baby steps, James. Yeah.
Lastly, Formula One, we have to dive into Max Verstappen and the Red Bulls this weekend.
Yes, go on.
Dominating the sport once again, Red Bull 1 and 2. After that, Max Verstappen secured a dominant victory. Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, and Aston Martin all fell short of expectations. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc faced braking problems and could only manage a fourth-place finish, while Mercedes driver George Russell also encountered car troubles and finished in fifth. McLaren's Lando Norris secured a sixth-place finish, while Aston Martin failed to place in any of the top 10, which is crazy. That's huge compared to what they did last season. And that's your sports wrap.
Not bad. And of course, Superbet supports responsible gambling. So if you haven't tried it already, maybe you want to. It's actually kind of fun. A friend of mine went on there over the weekend and won some big money.
Sure.
Big. Like I thought, this is a good story, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't know if he wants people to know that he won. It's that much money.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something that you said I must remind you that we do have to talk about is the closed bathroom door.
So, okay. Yeah, and I need some help on this one. We're really going to, it should be a Dr. Hanan, but we've actually got Simphiwe coming in for that one. So we have a bathroom door. You probably have used the loo here or washed your hands or whatever. We've got a little bathroom right near the studio. It's convenient. The guest suddenly has explosive diarrhea. They can quickly make it there in time.
Like the Delta Airlines lady.
Yes.
She'd make it this time.
So we have the door on that, which opens and then, because it's a small little loo, like most loos in most houses, it opens and then it kind of hits the loo. So, so it kind of obscures the room, which is what you want for a loo. Who wants to look down a passage and see a lavatory?
Yeah.
A horrible thing. So for some reason, and I'm with James on this one, it should be left open and less occupied. Don't you think? You don't see the loo, so you don't need to watch. The door must be left open if there's no one in there, because otherwise it's sending mixed signals. If it's not being used, why is the door closed?
So, yeah, I mean, I could see the point either way. I'm very much a don't want to see the loo person.
No, but I'm making you in charge of this. I'm actually giving you have full judicial discretion.
Can I have a look quickly?
Go and have a look and tell me both of you go and have a look. I'll explain to people what you're seeing. Okay, and so what we've got here is, let me just put myself on the camera. I'm not used to this. What we've got is this door that opens into the loo, and it kind of abuts the lavatory, if you'll pardon the use of that ugly term. So when you walk past it, you're not going to have to look into a loo, You'll see the basin. But it opens, and then it's mostly left with the door closed, which is what's driving all of us crazy. Now, someone brought up already, Matthew says, logging aromas. So maybe that's a reason that it's closed. Like people are worried that there'd be a stank. So what do you think it is? Now, having seen it for yourself.
Yeah. It's perfectly fine open because it does hide the toilet.
Yes.
And it shows the basin, which is not an ugly basin.
No.
So that's fine. But I don't like walking into a bathroom where the door's being closed. You know what I mean? So I'm happy with it being open.
Yes, I think that's the only way.
Because you feel like the person before you, if the loo hasn't had enough ventilation if it's been closed.
Correct. And the more expansive, I'll tell you what, the biggest mistake most architects come in for so much criticism on this show. They really do.
But it is a passion of yours.
It is. And architects, I know you guys have to work under extraordinarily stringent budgets. And it's really tough because you have to try and make something pretty when they give you like a shoestring to work on. So you end up having to make everything out of glass and steel and concrete. I know. And it's hideous. I saw the most beautiful thing over the weekend. I might have retweeted it or Instagrammed it or something. They took this building which looked absolutely dreary and shit in Poland. It must have been built during the Soviet era. And they redressed it. Like they made it look like it was from the 1800s. So they put in, that sort of beveled stonework on the ground floor. They put in beautiful windows, architectural details, moldings, entablatures and columns and all kinds. They made it beautiful. So it's like an improvement. Everywhere else in the world, things are going backwards. But clearly in Poland, someone has decided we're going to make things prettier. It was just so nice to see. I was like, that one little drop of people making things prettier rather than uglier.
Mhm.
Just makes me so happy. But the reason I bring up any of this, don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I think I might already have. But architects make bathrooms too small. Think about this, right? You wake up this morning. Everybody who's listening to the show now, you wake up in the morning. What room in your house do you spend the most time in before you leave for work? Probably the
Exactly.
bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, obviously, bedroom you've been sleeping in, but probably the bathroom. And everybody's bathrooms, especially in these
Modern complexes.
they make them so tiny. They're like, we're going to make this room as small as humanly possible. We're going to make it pokey as hell. We're going to give it a tiny little window up in the top, like a prison. You talk about prison glasses, prison window.
Yeah.
Right?
I've always loved a big bathroom.
Yes.
One that
Oh,
you
luxury.
almost don't feel like it's a bathroom. It feels like a room.
Yes.
I feel like in my bathroom, they've tried to squeeze too much into it. There's a bath,
What do you mean?
a shower, a basin, and the toilet.
Yes.
When I don't need the bath, maybe you could have like
Yes.
not done the bath thing and saved
Well,
space.
I saw something I've never seen in my life before. My brother's just bought a new house, so he's moved, and I went with my sister to see his new house yesterday. And he gave us the grand tour. And there's this funny thing with his children's bathroom. It's like they've got the shower and a basin in one room, the loo on its own, fine,
Like-
but then another room with just the bath.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wait, and it's
never seen that before.
never say it's not horrible.
No, but
it's weird. It's like a bit of a waste of space, you
Yeah.
know.
I'd feel strange sitting in a bath in a room with
In
nothing
general,
else.
Well, I mean, it's maybe more sanitary. You know, we've often spoken about farticles, and
Yeah.
you kind of want the bathroom to be as big as possible. And you
They
wanna-
need to knock those walls down in between.
I think that would be a
Yeah.
good plan. But it is strange because this one room is just the bath, and it's got its little basin as
It
well.
makes me feel a bit weird.
Weird, right? Yeah. The serial killer was
Yeah,
living in
yeah.
that room. Here's Simphiwe. We're just in time. All right, James, you can go.
I'm out. Thank you.
There we go. Get rid of James. Bring in the professional.
The one that would make the sound work. That's correct.
All right. Have a seat, Simphiwe. I'm not used to having you here on a Monday first thing. I mean, you're going to give me very weird vibes. You're going to feel like it's Friday all of a sudden.
No, it's not.
Okay, just double check.
Unfortunately, it's not a Friday. Good morning, everybody.
All right.
Hey.
Here's the lovely Simphiwe. Okay, so Simphiwe Mtetwa, you have had a rough, let's just put it mildly, a rough start to the year.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to sketch the scenario before Dr. Hanan comes on, because I think people may or may not be aware of this, but we had a pretty tough month here at Cliff Central. I mean, we lost someone who was very, very important to us on the staff, a guy who, and we're a small crew, you know, it's not a lot of us. Homolemo was a big part of the family and has been for like 2 years,
Yes.
maybe a little bit more than 2 years. And we had a little braai on Thursday, which Leigh-Ann came to as well. And we invited Homolemo's parents because, of course, he was killed in a car accident at the beginning of February. And
Like a month today on the 4th.
there we go. So what happens here? And we discussed grief, and we've gone through all of that. But like Simphiwe has, and I think it's so brave that she's bringing this up because most people go, ooh, it's a bit of a sensitive subject.
Yeah.
But like you've had it up to here with like messages of grief. And
Oh, yes.
because obviously you are also grieving, but now you've become like a conduit for other people's grief.
Oh, yes.
And it's not to say you've moved on, because
Yes.
this is not something that leaves you. We're all still thinking about what's happened here, and it's a tragic situation. And people go through these things all the time. But there seem to be some people who dwell in this.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Like,
you want to just get through it now.
yes. I think to put it like I've gotten an overwhelming number of calls and messages where it's gotten to a point where I know it comes from a good place, but I just want to tell people to stop. Please just
Sure.
stop. And I don't know if that's normal. I don't know if that's weird. Hence, I want to talk to Dr. Hanan and find out, maybe I'm the weird one in the room. But yeah, it's gone to a point where I'm just like, can it just please stop? Like, if
No,
you're
I'm
going to
with you.
send me a message, let's keep it going about like
Yeah.
how the day is going. And can we not bring up, Homolemo every
Yeah.
2 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I'll tell you what we could have done with him just now when James screwed up the sound. I still don't know what he did, but it suddenly came on. So I don't know. Sometimes funny things happen. It's like the what would you call it? It's like the gremlins.
Yes.
Oh, climb into the system. Anyway, we're going to speak to Dr. Hanan, find out what advice he might have. And then I see a couple of other things that we've got to get to this morning. So I'm just going to throw forward to these quickly so that people know what else is coming up. We're going to be talking about something that we've often spoken about on the show, and we're going to have Dr. Fatima Patel back in because we liked her so much the last time. She was in here to talk about the fact that these hospitals are all dealing with superbugs. Remember?
That's right. Yeah.
And you liked that conversation because you could relate to it. You've had experiences in the family, all those kinds of things. Today, we're going to talk, because today is World Obesity Day. We're going to be talking about that. No, so we had a conversation the other day about with an endocrinologist, remember?
Yes.
And today we're going to talk to Dr. Sandeep Ruda, who's a well-respected endocrinologist and clinician who's based at the Life Fourways Hospital. We're going to talk a little bit about what causes obesity, what we can do about it.
See, this is what I like, an endocrinologist talking about obesity, because it comes down so much to hormones and genetics. And I know that goes against some of your beliefs on this.
Just say, I hate you.
Just
get it off your chest, all right?
Fucking disgusting how you talk about fat people.
Yeah, just say it. Go, say you hate me.
And you just think that we're eating and not running.
See, you think I'm going to be upset, but I promise it's fine. So tell me how much you hate it when I talk about fat people.
And how much when I say there can be hormonal issues and you don't believe it. So I'm just glad an endocrinologist. All right. Looking forward to that.
Well, we'll get to this. So listen, Dr. Hanan, how are you?
Hey, guys, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's nice to see you. So listen, we love spending Mondays with you, but Simphiwe's come in early this morning to be a part of this conversation. She's lost a close friend and a colleague. She's been receiving endless calls and messages of condolence. And people who really mean well, right, Simphiwe?
Yes.
They're checking in on her, saying, are you okay? How are you doing? And she wants to know if she's weird for wanting the calls and messages to stop, even though they're coming from a good place.
No, she's not weird.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, thank God.
All right. Thanks for coming. Great show, guys.
All right. Well, that was easy.
That was just part one.
So on a serious note, people grieve differently. We all walk through the process of grief, which is, I've mentioned many times before, grief is when my world changes from A to B and my head and heart hasn't had time to adjust to the new world. And healing happens when I eventually accept the reality of what it is. And the way we heal is we got to move forward. We got to progress. We got to still be whatever your identities are. You got to be a father. You got to be a husband. You got to be a son. You got to be a brother. You still got to be a friend. You still have responsibilities at work, and you got to move forward. And as you move forward, you adjust to the reality of what it is. Now, moving forward for a lot of people means, well, for different people means different things. Some people move forward means I got to immerse myself back into work. Other people, I've got to immerse myself back into my relationships. Some people, I've got to immerse myself back into supporting the people that I've supported before. Some people have got to adjust and maybe move places. So we heal in different ways. That's why 100 different people will heal in 100 different ways. The common denominator is that we all have to move forward. You have to progress. You can't sit still. Sitting still in the sadness just doesn't work. So the whole illusion of, in order to heal, I've got to sit still, that doesn't make sense. That's actually counter effective. So we got to move forward. So when you're going through a process of grief and you want to push people away because it's not helpful to you, that is exactly what you should do. The only mistake that you can make, Simphiwe, is heal according to textbook. In other words, the textbook says that I should be hearing from people, surrounding myself with people. I should be doing X, Y, and Z, and which is not true. You heal in your own different way. What I would recommend is that you set boundaries with people. So people are not ill-intentional. They don't want to obviously do the wrong thing. They want to support you, but they don't know exactly what nutrients you need in order to heal. And it is your job, Simphiwe, to let people know, do more of this and do less of that. So set the boundaries and let people know what you need in that particular moment.
Oh, Okay, I can definitely do that. I just thought maybe it'd be rude, and sometimes when people do something out of a good place, and you just like, please stop, it always comes across as something negative, and people take that in a negative light. But I can definitely do this. This is just part one of like my dilemma, Dr. Hanan, because part two, a few days after the funeral, I had a family member call me and basically was like, throughout this week, I've been seeing you. I think you're so attractive. I think you and I could be a couple.
Oh boy.
And he was basically laying the full,
Oh boy.
the full mag.
A funeral data.
Yo, and I was just so taken aback because I was just like, excuse me, sir. And yeah, like I'd like to also understand, like, how do people in like a moment like that see an opportunity to kind of want to shoot their shot?
Unreal. I didn't know about this. Wow. Wow, Doc, what do we make of that? Some sauciness on the show this morning.
So it is very sleazy for somebody to kind of catch you in the moment of weakness and when you're most vulnerable. It's completely sleazy. It doesn't get more sleazy than that. I mean, you're mourning the loss of your friend and colleague, and the guy sees an opportunity to get in there. It's like, how low can you go? It's so pick your moments. I mean, look, I always say saying the right thing at the wrong time is wrong, and this is definitely wrong. It's just not good timing. So again, people will always reveal their true nature. It doesn't mean that everybody is bad. Every guy is bad. Every man that wants to court you is bad. But people do reveal their real intention. And if the guy's willing to pick on you, especially at the moment when he sees kind of the gap or sees vulnerability and weakness, well, he's not just going to do it now. He's going to do it throughout your relationships. I know you are, grossed out and you don't want to go there, which is good for you. But you won't believe how many women see this as a nicety, see this as, oh my God, he's such a kind, loving, caring, and pathetic person. And but in this case, it just sounds really sleazy and dodgy. So yeah, you can set the boundaries for sure.
So just judging from our comments, I just wanted to clear something up. Was this a family member?
Not her family.
Not my family member. Humulimo's family member.
Some people were just saying, is it your family member?
No.
And then also Slippery Pickles comment, sex is the best way to overcome grief. And rolled eyes, so I know that they're probably being sarcastic. But you often see in movies, like people who haven't been together for a while, like an ex-husband and ex-wife or something, end up passionately being together because of a death around them. Is that a thing? Are there these like heightened emotions and vulnerabilities and feelings floating around?
So look, again, you got to understand what grief is in order to deal with it. So imagine being a complete circle and a person is removed from your life, suddenly it leaves a vacuum. Suddenly your world is not the same anymore. And you got to fill up that vacuum with something else that's quite healthy. Now, the problem with filling that vacuum, and a lot of people do with partying it up, sex, gambling, any addictions, drugs, alcohol, is that, yes, it does fill it up, but not for the long term. It's a quick fix. So you can't do drugs forever. That wears out. And then eventually the vacuum is still the vacuum. You can't party forever, and that vacuum still remains a vacuum. You can't, you can't sleep. Sleep is also a form of quick fix forever, and that runs out because you have to face the world, and that vacuum still remains a vacuum. So you got to make sure that you fill up that vacuum with things that are sustainable for the rest of your life. So what is sustainable? Well, they're healthy. We call them healthy anchors. So a sense of purpose, relationship with family, friends, romantic relationships. You're engaging with your health, with healthy routine in the day, things that you can do for the next 70 years. So it's not to say that you shouldn't be, at some point ready to party it out and, do your thing. It's perfectly fine, but it must be based on the foundation of the things that are sustainable for the long run.
Wow, you come in with some hot info this morning, Simphiwe. My God. Doc, do you think it would be odd? For example, I think I'd probably like people to just leave me alone if I'm dealing with a death in the family. I don't want those calls and messages and things. I don't want a fuss made. I don't want them pitching up at my house unannounced. You know what I mean?
Yeah, completely. Gareth, the truth is I'm exactly the same. When I'm dealing with stuff, I just want to kind of process it in my own way by walking my own journey. And again, it's different for different people. So you and I might find a lot of solace and a lot of comfort in walking on our own. Other people find a lot of comfort being distracted by others. So it's really unique for each individual. But the key, though, is you got to ask for what you want, because people don't know. People in their minds have got a recipe for you. So people know, well, I dealt with grief in A, B, and C, and therefore you should be dealing with grief in A, B, and C. I walked through this journey with person X, and we did X, Y, and Z, and you should be doing the same thing, which is not true. We heal in different ways. The common denominator, and I'll just repeat, the common denominator is that you have to progress and you have to move forward and not sit still. But how you progress and how you move forward is largely dependent on you and your temperament and your nature. So no, it's not weird at all. As a matter of fact, it will be, as I said, counter-effective. If you, for example, read a book and said, well, I need to heal by being with people, it doesn't resonate with your nature. And now suddenly, well, but the book says that I need to heal with people, so let me engage with people, and that will do the opposite. It will take you longer to heal because it doesn't resonate with your temperament.
Okay, this is good. This is really helpful. You happy, Simphiwe?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you're not weird, and that guy certainly is.
Yeah,
That's
we know
weird.
who
It
the weird
doesn't
one
mean
is.
she's not weird. It doesn't mean she's not weird. I mean, it doesn't mean that.
Okay, yeah, good point.
Two different topics.
Hey, is it okay for Leigh-Ann to hate me when I talk about obesity in a derogatory way?
Why do you hate him?
No, so that's a strong
Sure,
word.
no, it's
Gareth
hate.
made it up.
It's she despises me when she does. It's a deep-seated hatred. She wants to stab me in the throat.
No, it bothers me because you're an intelligent person, but
Huh?
you sorry?
But you say dumb things.
you base you base everything on science and biology, and yet when it comes to people being fat, you're just like, you're fucking fat. You eat too much.
So I think maybe I'm just projecting, and that's something we've got to discuss on a show too, is this projecting thing. I really don't. So I was with some family 2 weekends ago, and I said to my cousin, ugly people just ruin everything.
Are you trying to make this thing better?
No, listen, I'll explain. So this definitely comes from me, all right? Definitely a me problem. I love things that are beautiful. I love a beautiful sunset. I love to see nature in all its glory. I love to see a building that is constituted perfectly. I love to see sculpture and paintings.
Okay.
And just beautiful things really make me happy. Like on a level, I mean, there's a name for people like me, aesthetes, right? We're into really beautiful things. And someone ugly will walk into a beautiful setting and just fuck it up completely. And the same goes for fat people. I don't know why, but I have this something must have happened when I was a kid or whatever. Fat person must have stolen my ice cream or something.
As all fat people do.
It's not all they do, because they're greedy.
You probably got bullied by a fat person.
Probably. Maybe that's it. But I've got this thing where I just immediately I see them and it's like they've done nothing wrong. Might be a very nice person. I just immediately it just gets me irritated. I'm like, oh no. Taking up more space.
I've got a solution for you, Gareth. We must. This is called exposure therapy. Have you ever heard of exposure therapy? We put you in we put you in a white padded room and we just lock the doors. And every minute we just put a fat person in there just to give you a little bit. We'll start with a fist pump, and then we put somebody else that gives you a high five. And then once you get used to that, they'll give you a hug. And then they'll start taking their clothes off. And then we just experience more and more and more and more. And I assure you,
1,000 ways to die.
I'm giving us 12 weeks. By 12 weeks, you will love a fat person.
I'll crack. I'll die. You'll kill me.
That's what you think.
That's
what
plus,
you think.
I don't see. I don't see the upside. And plus, I don't have 12 weeks for you. Sorry. It's gonna have to, it just is what it is. All right.
You would have 12 weeks if Dr. Hanan said that fat person will slowly change into the most beautiful woman or man you've
bullshit.
ever
It's
seen.
never gonna happen.
You would give 12 weeks for that.
I just need 12 weeks for you to see the beauty in the fat person. As
Well,
a matter
I mean,
of fact,
sweet-
they'll be equivalent to a beautiful sunset.
No. So the sweet pea says, you're no oil painting, Gareth. So I think you're projecting. You hate what you are. All right. Very good. No, you know what? I mean, like some people don't like dogs, you know? Some people are really afraid of dogs. I see a dog and they just don't like you don't love dogs, right?
Or
And you go-
animals in general. Like,
right. And,
just,
and here's Leigh-Ann, and she loves dogs.
Mm.
And I just don't like obese people the way that other people are and do. And I can't do anything about it. I don't want to do anything about it. It's not like I go up to them and like Gary Player does and starts insulting them and tells them they must eat less. But I just, less is, in my case, genuinely more.
Well, we'll speak to the endocrinologist. We'll leave it to the specialist.
In the meantime, Leigh-Ann's going to carry on hating me. But it's definitely a me problem. All right? Okay. Right. Thank you, Doc. Thank you for dealing with all our psychological issues this morning, mostly with Simphiwe's. And I think that her lessons could be helpful for a lot of people because there are also those who just, they haven't let go, but now that you've also not got to let go.
yeah.
Right.
Drag you into their stuff. All right. So much more to talk about, but we've run out of time. Dr. Hanan, we'll see you in a week's time. Thank you, Simphiwe. Very good. What a way to start the Monday. So much to do. And you missed out on the first 5 minutes because there was no sound.
No,
But you know what?
Sorry for you.
Yeah, sorry for you. We got more to come in the next half hour, next hour actually, because we've also got World Obesity Day by 7:30. We'll be joined by Dr. Fatima Patel and Dr. Sandeep Ruda, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in there and what the real facts are, how we can actually deal with this, all of us together. It's good stuff. All of that and more on the way. Don't go anywhere. cliffcentral.com. It's Monday. It's the 4th of March.
Highs and lows, highs and lows. It's all the same. Highs and lows, highs and lows. It's all the same. Highs and lows, highs and lows. Keep all your game. Highs and lows, highs and lows. It's all the same. Highs and lows, highs and lows. So
All right. Good morning, cliffcentral.com. And it is just after 7 o'clock. If you've started your morning, I hope it is off to an awesome start. We want to hear from you. You can join in the comments section. You can also let us know what's happening. And today is actually World Obesity Day. And Carl says, is it true that World Obesity Day is spread over 2 days? Because it doesn't just fit in one day.
Look, you've got to find the humor in it, right?
All right, let's talk about something. Humor. So I mentioned that I was in a beautiful, natural, unspoiled place 2 weekends ago. But it turns out that the most polluted place on Earth is closer than you think. Yes, it's right here near us.
Saw an article, what it's like to live in the most polluted place on Earth.
And you immediately thought clickbait.
I did think that.
Yeah,
and then
that's what I would think.
I looked at the source. Okay, so it's MoneyWeb. They do sometimes have kind of advertorials, but this was quite a good article to read. It's actually the most polluted place on Earth is actually the Vaal Triangle.
Oh, sis.
Can you believe it?
Sis.
It's
now,
like 30 k's away from us.
What's right here and may even be the source of some of our water.
Yeah.
Ugh.
There are 1.7 million people living there. And it's known, besides being in the Vaal Triangle,
which is already horrible all on its own.
There are actually...
I mean, a triangle's never a good shape to be in. They can always back you into a corner. It's not a good place.
Well, neither is round today on World Obesity Day.
Okay.
But there are actually 3 industrial, causes of these things right there in the Vaal Triangle.
Well, you drive past it, all right?
Yeah,
so
you drive past Vanderbijl Park.
Vanderbijl Park is, oh my God, it's Mordor.
Yeah.
You got the towers with the flames coming out of the top and literally the Eye of Sauron following you on the highway as you drive past, and you're like Frodo hiding behind the car window. It's just like, and it looks hot and there's smoke billowing out of the top and making the sky black. It's Mount Doom.
So that is Africa's biggest steel mill. And
it's got to be somewhere. So
yeah,
better there, but still for those people, unfortunate, right?
Then to the southeast of that, near Vereeniging, there's a Letabo coal power plant, and the name means happiness.
Sure, like that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, coal power plant makes people happy.
And that belches out ash and sulfur dioxide, which we know is toxic. And then to finish off the triangle, further south, outside a petrochemicals plant in Sasolburg, an adjacent neighborhood regularly reeks of rotten eggs from hydrogen sulfide in the air.
Yeah. What a trifecta of terrible.
Yeah, by some measures, it is the most polluted city in the world. The toxins are causing hundreds of premature deaths, hundreds across the Vaal Triangle
this
alone.
Is actually killing people. It's not just, oh, that's gross.
No, it's actually killing people.
Yeah.
And like the article says, for those who are still breathing, most of them have respiratory disease.
Yeah.
And what do you do when the unemployment rate
makes me want to cough?
Is so
no, it does. Like when you were talking about the throat guy earlier, I just immediately want to cough. But okay, so this is a serious thing. I mean, we can make fun of it and we can mock and ridicule, rubbish places like the Vaal Triangle. But that's actually very, very depressing. Very depressing. You are a young person growing up. Again, we talk about like geographical privilege, right? Where you're born is such an important part of this. You just have to get away from there. Otherwise, you will end up with lung problems.
Well, the thing is, what happens if you don't have a job and that's where your job is, and you have to take it or leave it? In a country where we're battling with unemployment, you just take what you can get.
Horrific. But also, that's just the air pollution they're talking about. There's also water pollution in that area.
100%.
Right? The Vaal River flows through there. It's one of our major sources of water in Gauteng. It's also the biggest dam north of like the Free State. And we use it for agriculture. I mean, God alone knows what we're pumping into irrigation and sewage systems.
Soil.
The soil must be just permeated with like dangerous chemicals from all the stuff that comes out of the air. The rain brings it down. It ends up in the Vaal Dam. You go for a swim. You go skiing on the Vaal dam like so many people do. You come out with a third leg or 5 testicles.
Yes, exactly. So this study is one of the first to detail the scale of power plant pollution in South Africa. Eskom has, of course, challenged this report, which nevertheless said its own research has found.
Eskom, like, we need you and your research. Like, you guys, you know what? It would be bad enough if people were getting lung problems developing because of these power stations of yours. Fine. That's almost part of the package. But then you can't even provide the electricity. All these people have died in vain.
So the funny thing is, okay, this is Eskom's thinking. They were against this report. They said, no, this report is incorrect.
Right.
You know why it's incorrect, they said? Because you, Mr. Holland, who ran, this consultant, Mike Holland from the UK, who ran the study, said that 204 premature deaths were caused a year from this. And that's wrong, because our research says about 330 people die from this a year.
It's worse. It's worse. Sure, Eskom really, they need someone in PR there in a big way. Huh? It's just unbelievable. So they've actually made it worse.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, that's horrific. Honestly, I mean, I feel very, very sorry for people who live in like Vanderbijl Park and Vereniging. And that's a really tough neighborhood. Things that are in the air and in the water will try and kill you.
And there are huge housing developments there, right alongside the factories for convenience for the workers. So that article saying, imagine what it's like to live in the most polluted place. It's 30 miles from where we're sitting right now in Joburg.
So don't think that doesn't blow over here sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you make me want to go out with a mask again. I just got through COVID. Now I got to wear a mask again.
You want to go back to your place from last weekend?
I do. I just want to go somewhere where the humans have not ruined everything. And I'm not an environmentalist. You know this, right?
No.
I'm not one of these tree-hugging greenies. But that's where I'm on their side. Is like, people just can't be trusted to keep themselves tidy. Again, it's not just a beauty for the eyes. It's like the lungs.
Yeah.
You can't ruin everything. You can't just make everything dirty and filthy and think there's no comeuppance for you on the other side. Anyway, I mean, that's scary. So we're the most polluted place on earth is just down the road here. That's lovely. All right. And then speaking of Eskom, there are a lot of people jumping in there. Carl says they have no place doing research. They must focus on generating electricity. Those twats. Couldn't agree more. But Roger Jardine was in here the other day, and I see TL brought up that I called it, that they're going to drop out of the elections. I saw him make the announcement over the weekend. In fact, it was Friday morning, because we saw the messages starting to come through on social media, that Roger Jardine has given up, and he and his party, Change for Good or whatever they're called, they're out. He's decided it's not worth contesting. They didn't have enough signatures or something. They decided they're out. And you know what? Again, I got a double-edged sword here. Compliments on one side, insults on the other. But the compliment is, I respect and admire anyone who throws their hat into the political ring, feels that they can make a difference, especially if it's someone who's lived a life where he's an achiever. He's by no means some kind of schlub. But the guy has made a lot of money. He's done very well in South Africa. He's been an important part of, the transformation of South African business. He played a role in government. He played a role outside of government. There are lots of people who have a lot of respect for him. That's good. And I admire that he didn't just go into retirement, take his money and say, all right, it's your problem now. He decided, I'm going to get in here. I'll do what's right. So from that point of view, I have nothing but respect for Roger Jardine. The problem is, like, he just wouldn't have cut an impressive figure in politics. Not because he's a bad person, just because the actual politicians would have sunk their teeth and nails into him and he wouldn't have stood a chance. Someone like Gayton McKenzie, someone like Julius Malema, frankly, even the guys in the DA, just eat him for breakfast. So, you know what? I'm happier for him that he's not in. Let's just put it that way.
Imagine the stress.
Tough business.
Sure.
Yeah. Again, someone says here that Carl says, sure, Gareth, Roger, Jardine really pissed Nelly. Again, guys, like, that this is a very South African thing. And I thought about this while Jimmy Carr was joking on stage on Saturday. South Africans mistake someone who is passionate about something because they've gone and looked up information and they've made themselves as educated as possible on the subject. They look at people like that when they get argumentative or passionate in an argument. They go, oh, well, that person's hostile. That's not the case at all. I'm always being misinterpreted, and I understand it's a me problem. When I talk about something I care about, I can't help but infusing it with a lot of emotionally charged language, right? That's how I speak. It's why we were joking about the fat people before 7. We were talking about Leanne's glasses. We were talking about, how people find this funny, but they don't find that funny. I can't help that I inject a little bit of feeling into the way I speak. Otherwise,
thank goodness you do.
I'd be monotonous and dreary and academic. So people interpret that as me being hostile or aggressive because South Africans are weak. We've been taught that conciliation and respect and compromise is always the way to conduct a conversation. The best conversations are actually argumentative. And I don't want to go down a massive intellectual rabbit hole here of how you should or shouldn't argue a point, because everybody has different ways of doing it. You have a much more gentle way of doing it. In fact, women in general have a much better way of doing it in terms of it being friendly, accessible. I can't pretend to be any of those things.
Yeah.
When I talk about history, it comes across as passionate. It comes across as I'm invested in it.
Yeah.
Right. So when I talk about politics, the same thing happens. And then people assume that's because I have some personal gripe. And the last thing on my mind is to have a personal. You know this. You've been around me long enough to experience. I can't believe that Carl, who's a smart guy, thinks this still. That I'd have a personal issue with someone.
Yeah.
I really don't. Don't think about it any longer than I absolutely have to. If you ask me about it, it'll come up. I'm not sitting there steaming over politics.
It is definitely a South African thing, that whole, keep
just
quiet.
Avoid the last thing you want is an argument.
Complain.
Don't let anyone get upset. That's the worst thing that could possibly happen.
It's the same, and I'm trying to remember now. South Africans have difficulty in seeing the difference between is it pride and arrogance?
Well, just
or like confidence and arrogance. Yeah.
I've always had a problem with that too, because South Africans across the board, and again, the most amazing thing, we're always looking for things that we could say bring us together as a nation. But a lot of the things that bring us together are actually quite negative things. There are positive things. We love sport. We love the outdoors. People like socializing. We love drinking as a country. There are lots of things that we like and we have in common. But one of the things that's negative that we have in common is this predisposed notion of trying to, it's almost like a bitter tall poppy syndrome. It's not as bad as they have it in some places. But like if someone's just a little bit too loud, a little bit too comfortable saying what they think, oh, well, they must be very arrogant.
Very uppity.
Very uppity and arrogant. So we got to shut that person down. Can't you just be like moderate and calm? Moderate and calm, there's a premium on those in South Africa. So that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of this politically correct nanny pamphlet way we're expected to respond. Well, Sweet Pea doesn't give a shit, right?
Yeah.
Sweet Pea's up there with me.
She's
very good.
If you're like a honey badger.
Yeah.
You just don't give a damn.
Right. Huge reaction says, nothing wrong with a passionate debate. The word argumentative is probably a bit misleading. Well, again, we're convinced in this country that the best way to do anything is to speak really softly and gently, and that's the way that we engage. And actually, the people who seem to be making the most difference in this country are not the ones who are speaking softly. The ones who are really getting people fired up and making people think are actually sometimes the ones who don't hold back. So I say more power to that. Frankly, even if you disagree with me on everything, like Voltaire said, I will defend your right to say those things.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's more important that we all are on the same page. Someone said over the weekend in a podcast I was listening to, and I think this is such a valuable thing to incorporate into our national conversation, is we should make it okay to think out loud. The only place where real progress can be made is in a conversation where someone isn't guarding against offending somebody the whole time.
Yeah.
Thinking twice about what they have to say before they say it so that they don't upset anyone. Jon Stewart, the comedian, said once that he watched Hillary Clinton and you could almost see her buffering before a question so that she could say something after the question that would offend the least number of people.
Yeah, because she was almost on the defensive in that regard and had to do that.
Right.
And also knows too well how one thing you say can be misconstrued and, sit against you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so we need
a lot of pressure.
We need to prioritize having the conversations again. We need to make it okay for people to think out loud because there is no such thing as a thought crime.
Yeah, and to have, the freedom to say something and go back and say, actually, I didn't mean that.
Yeah,
and no one allows you or forgives you for that.
That's it. And that's how you moderate yourself. You talk about where moderation is a virtue, is once you've had an outpouring of opinion, which may be all the wrong things. And then because social pressures and a little bit of correction comes in, you can then moderate your point of view. It's good. It happens to all of us unless you're a complete ignoramus.
Yeah.
So let's get the words going here. Words are not violence. Words cannot kill you. Words need to be words. They don't need to be thought of as being something more powerful than they are. There shouldn't be any word that has, powerful, magical incantation powers. There are no words that have that. I've always thought words are massively important, but they're also just words. So when you say something and you really mean it, it should be allowed to come out. Right, now, that's enough of that. What do you have to do on Google Maps before you go traveling?
Oh, so it's something that I picked up on. You actually, I didn't know this, have to calibrate your Google Maps every now and then.
What?
So when you are in a walking situation, and I find the time that I would use it most is when I'm overseas,
yes,
like Europe or wherever, using that function. And apparently you actually have to calibrate it because it starts going off a little bit each year.
So how do you calibrate your walk? Do you have to measure it and give yourself a number?
Yeah,
it's like a handicap on a golf score?
I was reading this in bed and I was going to just do it from my bed, but you actually have to be outside. So you have to be outside, probably on a street, so that you can landmark and show where you are using your camera on your phone. And apparently it makes a huge difference, especially when you're walking around in tiny cobblestone villages in Europe, or you're trying to find a specific restaurant in New York, and it might be not picking up where you're standing.
Right.
So I had no idea.
Sometimes happens with Uber as well, right?
Yes.
Oh.
Sometimes the Uber will park really far from you and you wonder why.
So how do I calibrate this?
So how you do it?
This is important. We all use these things. What do we got?
So it's apparently only a few seconds. Here's how you get started. You open the Google Maps app. We're not going to be able to do it now because we're inside.
Okay.
You give it a few seconds to figure out where you're located. And then to ensure that it has your precise location, you tap the location indicator button in the bottom right corner of the screen.
I'm going to I'll listen to this again when I'm outside.
For Android, it's a bit different. There's a spiked circle icon that looks like a compass. So on iPhone, there's an arrow icon pointing to the upper right. You know the one?
Yes.
Tapping that will center the map on your precise location.
Okay.
Then you tap the blue dot that represents you, yourself.
Yes.
And you can press calibrate. If Google Maps detects your location accuracy is low, it may automatically prompt you to calibrate. As prompted, you hold up your camera, you scan your surroundings with live view. So you just hold the camera in front of you facing outward and you slowly pan horizontally. So you're looking for buildings, streets, store signs.
All right.
And then, yes, you do that in a circle, keeping it straight ahead. and it calibrates, and you might see that your position actually switches quite a bit on the screen.
Very good.
I just
Okay, that's
can't-
useful.
Why can't it do it for us if it can do so much?
Don't worry. Someone in Silicon Valley is working on that right now. They're desperate for any innovation. Someone's going to figure that out for you.
I really hope so. There
Yeah,
are too
'cause
many
that's-
things to remember.
It's too much. You have to keep updating stuff all the time. It's yeah, I agree with you.
But
Should
at
be
least
automated.
now you understand why sometimes it's not picking up where you are. It's not
Okay.
just a signal thing, the calibration thing.
Paul reckons there isn't a single person in this country who uses the walk function on Google Maps. I don't know.
I use it in
have-
shopping centers.
I have to. Plus, I mean, like we were saying, if you can get the calibration right, it'll probably help you with all the other apps as well,
Mm.
so that you
All
can,
connected.
your Uber knows where to pick you up. I had an Uber pick me up like a couple of months ago, but it was like a block away.
Oh,
Yeah, I was like, what the hell's going on with my phone? Because it's definitely a me thing.
mm.
Anyway, doesn't matter. Hey, listen, you want to know something sad?
I don't know. Do I?
They're still looking for that MH370 plane, which it
Oh.
vanished 10 years ago.
Geez, there's been a lot that's come out of that with pieces of the plane washing
I
up and
I do
claims.
not understand it. So Malaysia is considering renewing the search for MH370, which disappeared en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing 10 years ago. I mean,
it's somewhere near a little group of islands.
really, must we go and look for Amelia Earhart?
Well, they found her plane just 2 weeks ago.
Did they?
They think so.
They think
They've
so.
taken like sonographs
So,
or whatever they're called.
really? Must we go and find Rose? Oh no, she made it off the Jack from the Titanic. We must find
No, but
Jack
the
from the
thing is-
Titanic, right?
There's so much going on with this
Ugh.
behind the scenes. There are people who've invested their own money in finding where this thing is. Not because it's going to bring some kind of relief, but just because
It's a mystery.
it's a mystery and they're
We hate an unsolved mystery.
bits of airplane washing up all over. And
Well.
it looks like it's from this plane.
We're reviewing a proposal from Ocean Infinity, said.
I think that's a private company.
Yeah, Malaysian Transport Minister, though, said the families of passengers have not given up hope. Guys, the families have not given up hope.
Yeah.
Surely for finding them alive, you've given up hope. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just, you're really, really just trying to be, you're living in
Mm-mm.
cloud cuckoo land, honestly. Okay. And as far as like finding the bodies, I don't think that's going to happen, guys.
No, then you're a bit delulu.
10 years?
Yeah.
Imagine what happens to them in the sea. 10 years, you'd be lucky to find 2 atoms of the person. Got to move on, guys. Anyway, the plane vanished in 2014 with 239 people on board. 2 previous searches failed to locate the wreckage. Families of passengers are urging the Malaysian government to renew the search, continue to share information with them. Guys,
What do they want to find? Just because all you're going to find is
yeah, it's done.
a bit of plane.
Right. The plane is in Eden Park, says Chulu. Well, there we go. Eden Park.
Oh.
Well, Chulu's figured it out.
Is that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Marpello says, the other day I realized Google Maps carries on showing you the directions and your current location, even when you go offline,
Yeah.
e.g. out of the Wi-Fi zone when traveling. Yeah, they've got this cool function where you can actually have offline maps.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are in a foreign city and you do use the thing to navigate, you don't have to have Wi-Fi the whole time.
Yes.
And you don't have to be on cell, right? Have they looked for the MH370 in the Vaal Triangle? Well, we wouldn't know because the sky is so darkened with soot that it could be just doing circles there for 10 years.
10 years.
I don't know. 60 Minutes in Australia apparently did a great story on that plane about 2 weeks ago. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, like some stuff we're never going to know. Yeah, Amelia Earhart, bring her up again. Poor old Amelia Earhart. Is it too soon to start joking about Amelia Earhart?
Oh, well, I mean, like I say, it's quite on point because there is this whole thing where they think they found her
Too
plane.
soon to make jokes about MH370? I mean, really, that's a hell of a long flight. Can you
I
imagine?
always try and think if I had a very close family member that had have been on that plane.
Yeah.
There's so much pain surrounding what happens when you lose someone, especially when you don't have
Closure.
the closure. Yeah. How far would you take it? And then imagine adding religion to the mix, where you think that you must always have hope. You never know; they could still be alive.
Guys, after 10 years, they can't. No,
It can't be.
They just can't. Someone has to tell these people the truth. Again, like someone in the Malaysian government has to sit down with all these families and say, listen, you guys have been at this for 10 years now. We've tried, we've looked. Private companies, like you said, governments, all been looking.
Yeah.
And you've got to realize now we're not going to find anything. I mean, really, like 10 years later, what? You're going to get an old bit of wing or...
Yeah.
I don't even think they know which part of the Southern Pacific they need to be looking in.
I think if I remember, I haven't seen this most recent documentary, but I've seen one before that. And there were two thoughts. Either it had been taken over by terrorists.
Aliens. I heard the aliens one.
Did you?
Ah.
And that it went north, and the other that makes more sense is that it went south.
Yes.
So they kind of know where it should be. Yeah.
All right. Well, apparently Tracy says you could watch the Huisgenoot levensdrama story on 1987's Helderberg disaster.
Oh, yes.
That still comes up, huh? Relatives recount that day and how it affected them. And it's heartbreaking. That's even years later. It's 1987. I mean, wow. A long, long time ago. All right, we got so much to talk about this morning, but one of the things that we want to do is talk about obesity. It's World Obesity Day today. More than 1 billion people around the world are now suffering from obesity, with the number having more than quadrupled since 1990, according to a study released by the Lancet Medical Journal. The epidemic is particularly hitting poorer countries. The rate is growing among children and adolescents faster than adults, according to the study carried out by the World Health Organization. There's a lot to unpack in that brief introduction, and to help us do it, we're joined by Dr. Fatima Patel. Again, how are you, Doc?
I'm fine. How are you doing, Gareth?
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Very good. You were such a hit last time. They want you back. Love having you here. And also today, we're joined by Dr. Sandeep Ruda, who is a well-respected endocrinologist. He's based at Life Fourways Hospital and speaks locally and internationally on endocrinology and philosophy. Dr. Ruda is also authored and co-authored in local and international journals on topics like the ones we're going to talk about today, diabetes, also philosophy and medicine, and of course, obesity. So, Doc, nice to have you here too. Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth.
How are you?
Well, yourself.
Excellent. I'm so relieved that both of them came in and neither of them are fat, because I wouldn't know how to do it.
It's always awkward, hey?
So awkward when you're talking about fat and there's like fat people right there. But we do have to talk about this, because as much as I make fun of, and I am made fun of, because I also looked in the mirror this morning and thought, I have no room to
But you've lost 5 kgs this year already.
I have, but I still am not happy. And I don't have body dysmorphia, so don't worry about that. But I do think there are a lot of people who are suffering in a very real way every day because of this. And there's a huge difference. You actually told me this, Dr. Fatima, the other day. You said there's a big difference between the people who are really, really obese. They've gone like beyond a certain point where it's just a weight loss thing, and, eat less, run more, which I know you agree with my diet there. But there are people who are really, really struggling. So I'm glad to have two people here who can really help us understand this too. So where do we begin? Let's talk a little bit about what obesity is, because I've heard that there's a big difference between overweight and obese. And then there's a difference between obese and morbidly obese, if we're even allowed to use that term. So, Dr. Sandeep, do you want to take us through the definitions just so that we can make sure we're on the same page?
Yeah, sure, Gareth. Look, things exist in a spectrum. And we categorize things in science and medicine for us to work with an issue accurately and correctly to get the best help to people. So obesity is defined as a state of excessive fat accumulation in the body. And that accumulation of fat becomes bad for you, to put it simply. It has a lot of consequences. So when we categorize weight, we use this parameter called the body mass index. By and large, it is useful, but there's certain caveats in different ethnicities and people of different builds where you got to be a bit cautious about its use. And perhaps things like waist circumference or waist to height ratios may be more applicable. And a lot of research around that. But the idea is that the higher the body mass index, the higher your rate of complications. So overweight would be categorized as a BMI over 25, obesity is 30 and above, then there's class 1, 2, and 3 obesity up to 40, greater than which it's morbid obesity. Meaning if we don't deal with this, you're going to get some serious consequences soon. And we've got to work on it more aggressively. And the consequences of that are the big issue, cardiovascular, cancer, mechanical issues, back pain, knee pains, osteoarthritis. So, and that causes a lot of what we call morbidity, and mortality ultimately leads to death, you see.
Yeah.
So,
You also got to include things like cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes. They all become, you become at high risk for those diseases when you're obese or when you have a high BMI, like Dr. Rood is talking about now.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the reason I bring up the definitions is because a lot of this has now been obscured. It's no longer just the province of medical experts, because the definitions have now also become social, and there's an element of those social definitions which has been politically corrected, so that we now have people who say, well, I'm body positive, but they've got a BMI over 40, for example. And those people are in danger of a number of things that you've just listed.
Correct.
But we are supposed to just turn a blind eye because society, and not all of us are medically trained like you two are, society's led by the nose, so that we have to go, well, that's absolutely fine. It's okay if my sister or my aunt is just enormous and has no grip on her own health, but we must all pretend that it's absolutely fine. So I don't expect you to change that, You can only inform people.
That's the theme of World Obesity Day is let's talk about obesity, and is to start these conversations. They're difficult conversations, but to actually start them, it can affect policy change, that can turn words into action. I think that's the first point where we start is let's have the conversations. Let's be cross-collaborative. Dr. Rood is more of an expert in this, and we'll listen to him.
So I think one of the things, Gareth, that the discussion around, and it's been debated for a couple of years now, is how to, or whether we should medicalize obesity as a disease. And there's a Lancet commission going on that at the moment. So if you medicalize a thing, there's an element of biological determinism in it. And there's a caution in this, there's a review in the Lancet on it, that perhaps the dilemma of human choice in things is something that will be sidelined. And it's not a judgment or anything on anyone. Ultimately, we are a species that have this dilemma of choice in everything we do. But on what basis we choose becomes the issue. And the environmental and social determinants of health are very important in that determination. But then there is that biological element. Once you've got established obesity, there's a lot of physiology that goes wrong that leads to disease. So if you medicalize that part, then these issues around a feeling of what obesity is can be objectively managed, and say, look, this is a medical conundrum. And if you look into it without any feelings about it, then we have to do something about it. And that drives better treatments in the long term at the individual level. But then if you understand the social determinants as well, then we've got to work on that area as well in terms of food insecurity, the junk food marketing, etc., which is all very important as well. So you've got this individual at the center of everything. With a positive energy balance. And the influences are macrocosmic and microcosmic, you see. And you got to see it that way. Maybe one more point to make before we go on is that there's a tendency in medicine to look at disease based on our history of how we've developed medicine. Remember, in the past, treatments were acute. You got a bacterial illness, the rise of antibiotics would you fix it immediately.
Sure.
Then there's trauma. We come out of an era of wars in the 1900s and 1800s. So trauma medicine is acute medicine. But in the modern times where there's a lot of technological advancement and life has changed, although there's a polarization of low and high socioeconomic status, the diseases we're seeing, we call them lifestyle diseases, non-communicable diseases. And the causation is protracted over a period of time. You cannot fix that overnight. So it requires a different way of thinking about it in the long term. And I think that's important.
So complex. I think when you're dealing with a disease like cancer, yes, there are a lot of choices still that the human being can make going into that. For instance, lifestyles, not smoking, etc. But it almost feels like with obesity, there's even more. It's hormonal. It's your DNA. It's your stresses in life. It's whether you have money or not. To whether McDonald's is going to be cheaper than buying roasted vegetable
That's
meal.
quite right.
There's just so much that goes into it. It's so complex.
It is quite complex, but we have to try and see simple logic in things. And even that, you mentioned cancer, for example. It is now obesity is a risk factor for most of the common cancers we see. So breast, colon, kidney, endometrial cancer, right? So if we start educating the populace on this causation, see, obesity comes out of certain causes. Once you have obesity, it becomes the causal factor for other effects. So there's this law of life called cause and effect is playing out whether we like it or not.
Right.
You know? And we've got to examine that. If you look at cancer also, there's a flip side to the argument. Cancer cells grow in areas of constant damage to the body. We expose ourselves to the sun all the time, get damage. That's where cancer will grow. The lungs, smoking all the time is damage. It will grow there. So perhaps we need this philosophy. How is our body getting damaged in our current modern lifestyles? Perhaps there's a problem here also where science is a bit fragmented from how we use it to design life and policy. There's a separation. You see, ancients, and I am a bit of a philosopher on this aspect, which can lead to some disagreement, but it's a thought to consider that when people analyze nature, the laws of science, and what can go wrong, we would use that understanding to improve our relationship with the environment and nature. So in today's times, that would be policy, how we structure society, etc. We don't do that enough. It's almost like we will carry on this trajectory of how we're living, and something must fix it on the side. And I feel there's a discrepancy there that we need to infuse our learning into proper policy, you know.
And also, I mean, in South Africa, we have a very peculiar set of circumstances too. I mean, I've discussed with Dr. Patel diabetes and how important that is in taking South Africa into consideration as a whole. So we're a fat country.
Yeah,
we are.
We're probably amongst, I can't remember the rating currently, but I mean, the current numbers are looking at 68% female population obese and about 34% more or less. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's a big difference.
Male.
Are we being unfair if we just say, oh, well, women are more affected by this because it's just unlucky? What's the story? I mean, why is there such a discrepancy between male and female obesity in South Africa?
Isn't there a hormonal influence as well?
That's what Leigh-Ann was
difference of the sexes
about,
as well.
So there's a lot of research that is going on to try and investigate this, but there are some factors that are being identified. So certainly women tend to go through more hormonal changes during life. And those become vulnerable periods. We know during menopause, there's a general weight gain of about 1 kilo or 2. But you see, you look at context matters. When you look at that change in an urban environment with our risk factors, the weight gain is much more than if you see someone who living an active rural life, very natural kind of, physical labor kind of life. That's one question. Risk factors like smoking, alcohol intake, high calorie foods, sedentariness all play a role in that context. So a given hormonal change, like pregnancy even, is a hormonal flux. And you will see patients in a high sort of obesogenic environment will put on more weight during pregnancy, which is more difficult to lose. So there may be some hormonal contribution, mild genetic contribution as well, but the context is the environment still. And the degree of weight gain then differs. There was one little study in Cape Town, I think it was UCT, a small study that showed women coming from rural areas of South Africa to the city where they get a tertiary education and take on work in corporate environments. Women tend to take on more sedentary jobs, office work, whereas the men will come in more hard labor, you see. So there may be those kinds of differences too that lead to changes. And then, I mean, I read one small study where prolonged use of the oral contraceptive pill, for example, which a lot of women use for different reasons, may contribute to development of insulin resistance in the long term, which may contribute to a bit extra weight gain. So, and then last one, perhaps, Gareth, endocrine disrupting chemicals in the environment, hyperestrogenism and that sort of thing. This huge amount of research needs to be done there. They're everywhere, you know. So we got to think about these things.
I find this fascinating stuff because there are also all those other complicating lifestyle factors: sleep, the kind of food we eat, stress, exposure to, as you said, all the advertising and marketing and all of this stuff. We mustn't pretend it doesn't have an effect. So you've got a complex universe of things acting on the individual, and they also have choices, as you mentioned. And sometimes they make the wrong choices, but we can't just blame them for the wrong choices in all of this, because there's so much other stuff that comes into play.
I think Sandeep can talk to this, but one of the biggest factors that has influenced this, especially in the field of diabetes, is urbanization. We spoke about this with Dr. Mamdou also when we did the podcast for World Obesity. It seems like urbanization was the catalyst for all of what we're experiencing now in terms of the situational and environmental factors that we're seeing influencing this.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean when I say, the science should try and direct policy in our design of society. Urbanization has just happened without us considering what the consequences would be. If you study some of ancient civilizations, I'm particularly fond of studying the East, and the structure of society, the design of buildings, work, etc., was all designed around human being actualizing a purpose. There's nothing wrong with that. It's peace, bliss, happiness. How we pursue that becomes the question. And in today's environment, it's become materialistic sense enjoyment, you see. So if we don't know a better way, then we become by default herd mentality. That's the slave mentality, isn't it? So environmental change, but also developing human intellectual self-sufficiency that we can direct choices better. That combination, I think, is very, very important.
So what can ordinary people who are not necessarily, let's say you may be overweight, you may even be obese, you want to take charge of things and make your life a bit better. You don't want to put yourself at risk of heart disease and all the rest of it. How can you start, apart from the obvious of eat less and run more, which Dr. Patel I know is a supporter of? You love my diet, right?
I love exercise. I love exercise.
I just wanted you to do the forward for it so it could have some medical credibility. But
I love exercising, and I'm a huge fan and an advocate for exercising.
No, you are, and it's important to exercise. But what else can people do besides, kind of moderate their intake of calories and do a bit of physical exercise? They're not sedentary the whole time.
And if we can add to that question, Ozempic.
Oh yeah, you got to bring that up.
I have to know these
Which
things.
has become a category name for a whole lot of drugs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
because now people just say Ozempic, but they could mean one of 20 different kinds,
absolutely.
right?
So let me start with the first part. That's okay, Fatima.
Sure.
Look, I think if you look at a series of studies, Bluer is one of the good researchers in obesity, a nice review in a high-impact journal, Nature Endocrine Reviews. The cause of obesity, it puts it in 3 categories. There's overeating, there's physical inactivity, and there's other. And the overeating, once again, and lack of physical activity, we're not judging people. That's not what we're saying. We've acclimatized to it. So under overeating, he puts a whole list. Social cultural phenomenon, starter, main, dessert, after dinner mints, the business lunches. They've all been designed without a purpose. People eat when they're stressed, emotional, peer pressure. There's so many reasons, wrong knowledge about what is the correct food. So all that has to be addressed. So we are in an overeating culture. So to eat a little bit better is not ideal. We've got to understand what is a normal diet. If you look at some of the reviews on the Khoisan diets, Hadza of Tanzania, the Bajau in the Philippines, what we're actually supposed to eat is very little. And that's why intermittent fasting and these things today are considered fads and extremism. We're not going to starve, but to change to a different climate requires a perception and a paradigm shift. So that's the one thing on eating. Physical activity, action is the insignia of life. There's the concept of disuse atrophy. What we don't use in nature becomes stagnant and putrid. So you look at that documentary on Netflix, the Blue Zone. Those people were active. They did everything manually. Now, we got to try and replicate that in urban environments to some degree. Then there's the other part, abnormal sleep cycle, thermogenesis. Some studies showing that because we don't get cold in winter anymore because we got heaters around. We don't activate enough
We're
brown
not
fat.
burning the fat
Yeah,
into.
there actually is brown fat between the scapula.
Oh,
the
brown
back.
fat sounds horrible. Sounds really.
Well, you want more of it because it burns the bad fat, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that cold exposure, so there's many other reasons. There's neuroendocrine factors where the thermostat for weight and appetite control gets set lower for some reason. And that's where these new drugs are useful. So I think, like we said earlier, it's very complex. We've got to address all of these things. Now, if you don't understand complexity and you want instant gratification, then you want a drug now to fix it. Now, there have been the advent of very useful medications in the treatment of obesity, and that particular class, one of them is the GLP-1 receptor agonist. These are hormones of the gut-brain axis, which when used appropriately can help reset those thermostats and do give obese patients a good advantage to start losing weight along with lifestyle changes. Now, the particular drug you mentioned belongs to that class, but that one was first studied for diabetes, and the weight loss was a minor side effect. I would say that that drug, semaglutide, is useful in diabetics, and it's life-saving in some of them. It showed cardiovascular risk reduction. A spin-off of that was study of the same drug at a higher dose for obesity, which is not available in this country at the moment. And a shortage of that drug abroad led to the awareness of semaglutide 1 milligram, and a shortage of that now that actually some of our diabetic patients are completely deprived of it.
Because of Hollywood elites that are busy injecting
you see,
themselves.
and that's the thing. So that's why I think to medicalize an aspect of it is important, because you want to get bang for buck here in terms of a medical benefit. And remember, all drugs have side effects. There are other drugs also that work more centrally, like naltrexone, bupropion for the craving center, etc. So when you're using drugs, you got to weigh benefits and risks and individualize the approach to a patient, where some buy into a holistic process. And you use the drugs like a pole vault. My approach in the long term is, see, you want to use the pole vault to get to the high bar to cross it. That's your success. But you need to learn to use this pole appropriately. Otherwise, you're going to fall. Right?
Yeah.
And once you get to the bar, you have to let it go to achieve your success, isn't it?
Right.
So if you think of that analogy like that, we can work with patients long-term. My patients 2-3 years sometimes. I know there's a drive to want to use these drugs chronically, like you would a statin for cholesterol. I think it's too early to say that. There are advancements in it also happening. But side effect-wise, I would also be a bit cautious. A lot of gastric side effects. We can't say we've put the thyroid side effects to bed yet. They're a small issue. The current thyroid side effects in terms of risk of thyroid cancer don't mandate us to not use the drug. The benefits still far outweigh the risk. But when you use things long term and it's more prevalent in use in the real world, that's when things start popping up. So. While there are good treatments, I think we have to use it appropriately.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught in that trap of taking your 6-month script and just refilling it until eventually 10, 15 years have passed.
Yeah.
And you haven't had anything reassessed. I'm on thyroid medication. I haven't had that reassessed in 8 years. I'm just taking the medication.
Yeah.
Leigh-Ann, you should have that assessed.
Yeah, exactly. And I was very
can't even
careful.
see through her glasses this morning. There's a woman with many problems.
We're starting with sight so that I can drive to the doctors.
She's got you should see the stuff that they added to her bill. I mean, it's like stuff here that I think that they're just taking the piss. There's one there that says at the bottom.
What scan? A fundus scan?
No, that's that we figured out.
Yeah, we figured that out.
That's your eye examination.
Yeah.
It doesn't
So
matter.
We're starting somewhere. And I think the best successes I've had in the past with weight control have been with endocrinologists. I believe that that's the way to go, especially when you're dealing with things like insulin resistance, which I have. The dangling of the Ozempic carrot in front of everyone.
People are desperate for a cure-all. I mean, they've been talking about the pill that you could pop or the injection you could get one day.
There's always
so
something.
They're always looking for the silver bullet.
And I mean, wouldn't the pharmaceutical companies love to have that silver bullet? Because they could sell it at whatever price they wanted.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of money to be made in the field, so you got to be cautious of that too.
Sure.
I would say that by and large, a lot of the use of obesity medications has been outside of the obesity space. So people are getting these drugs without prescription in some instances. There's been a lot of issues where fake versions of it are appearing, and you have to be cautious. And it's in the space of cosmetics and vanity.
That's it.
I need to lose weight for a wedding. So that's where you're seeing a lot of use as well. What we're sitting here and talking about is obesity as a medical problem, you see, and appropriate identification of those patients, and then selective drug use where appropriate. That's important, I think.
I think ultimately it comes down to a multifactorial approach. It's not just one thing. It's many things that are contributing to what we're seeing now in this epidemic. And medical is one of the issues that has to be addressed for a patient.
Sure, but I do again think that there's quite a lot of this that is about the person making choices and being responsible for themselves. You know, there are obviously things that are beyond everybody's control, environmental circumstances. There may be genetic components of this as well. Could be all kinds of things, but ultimately the one thing you can do something about is decide to do something about it.
Yeah. That choice exists for all of us. The degree to which we can make those choices in a better way depends on certain fundamental values also, Gareth, which we don't talk about. If you read Confucius and Buddha, you know, extract philosophies, forget the character and personality, but the eternal truths of duties over rights, gratitude, unselfishness. You know, if those sorts of fundamental values are considered in our choices, I think a lot of things aside from obesity can change. And that's what we don't think about. There's the other side of society, unfortunately, and I've worked in some of the rural areas of South Africa where it really is difficult to bear sometimes, where people on traditional diets and subsistence farming had access to healthy, nutritious food, high protein sources from animals, eggs, and the vegetation they grew in Limpopo, in Venda, etc. But now, because of the food systems changing and the structure of society changing, I mean, you're getting shocked. You know, the food that we ought to be eating has become niche. Organic veggies you get at a shop in Bryanston at a high cost.
Farmers
is what
market.
they were growing, you know. So that food security issue, especially with the poor and marginalized, a loaf of bread and a 2-liter Coke with acha is not food. It's not nutritious, you know. I think that needs to be addressed. And you look at guys like Healthy Living Alliance and Priceless, Professor Karen Hoffman's work, I think we should try and support those sorts of things, you know. South Africa is a place where it could be a microcosm of new things that can be born, but there's a tendency just to copy paste, especially in medicine, how Western paradigms go, especially America. And
America's got no room to talk about this stuff.
No.
Because I mean, they're a very fat country too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of questions here. Someone wants to know about intermittent fasting because according to JP, he heard you say that you shouldn't attempt it, but you actually saying you think it's fine. We eat too much.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you look at intermittent fasting. And once again, with everything, context matters. In a certain vulnerable group, you're not going to suddenly do intermittent fasting, pregnant woman or someone who has other issues. But if you have a philosophy of minimizing your caloric intake, I mean, I'm 46 years old now. You could say my lifestyle is intermittent fasting. I don't have that desire to eat 3 meals a day. You know, 2 simple meals, very nutritious. I enjoy my food. And that's enough to maintain my body. You have that philosophy. Now, you could do intermittent fasting in terms of a time restricted or a day restricted. These are medical ways of doing things. The studies, there have been studies that have shown you can get weight loss, you can improve diabetes markers. In some case, look, if you catch type 2 diabetes in obese patients early, 15% weight loss and maintenance of that weight loss has been shown to put it into remission, you know. So we can achieve those things through lifestyle interventions. Intermittent fasting has benefits in improving longevity, reducing cancer risk. And there's some data on Parkinson's and Alzheimer's.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So even those sorts of diseases can
There's
be improved.
a link with Alzheimer's being, there was a discussion I remember some years ago about calling it a type 3 diabetes. You know? We're seeing a lot of dementia in people who consume highly refined sugars and high calories in their life. Guys with a sweet tooth.
Sugar.
See?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of causation here that I think will come to the fore in years to come.
So a couple of quick questions from the comment section here. So we've got someone who says, what about carnivore diets? You want to address that one?
Dr. Rude, I'll leave that in your
I don't know
your
much
experts.
about the carnivore diet.
Okay.
But I mean, look, I mean, I've probably just read it in passing, is people just eating really meat and avoiding veggies and that sort of thing. 175 country 20-year study showed that the healthiest diet on earth where cultures imbibed vegetables, vegetarian diets are healthiest. Then you get the Mediterranean type of diet where it's lots of veggies, chicken, oily fish like tuna, salmon, that sort of thing. As you start getting to the red meat level, the health outcomes are a little worse. And then once you add processed meat, it's terrible. So processed meat, definite no. So I think a sense of proportion is very important. You know?
I think it also comes down to the individual.
Yeah.
It's not a one diet fits all for everyone. It has to come down to that person, has to be assessed medically, clinically, their environment, how their work sustains their diets, their lifestyle. It has to be assessed holistically and individualized. It's not a one fit all.
So here's an easy question from Carl. He says, do cold plunges really kill fat?
They'll kill you if you're not careful.
Thank you. Don't tell that to Ben.
Well, first thing on a winter's morning, I don't think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, those sorts of, I know what he's talking about. I can't remember the chap's name, the Iceman guy, right?
Yes.
Look, I mean, these sorts of interventions, I study a lot of history. You imagine an ancient sage waking up in his hut, very knowledgeable, takes a dip in the ice cold Ganges, exposes himself to the sun in the morning, and then gets about his daily business. He's living within circadian rhythm. And there is evidence that cold exposure at certain times can reset a lot of our circadian clock. Whether it directly burns fat is a different issue. But you see, we tend to think about things myopically like that. Well, there's burnt fat. No, maybe if it's part of a good rhythm of life, then you're okay, you know. And certain circadian clocks is a big issue in endocrinology right now. Every cell in the body has been identified to have a genetic clock, which is in keeping with the timing of the sun cycle. So the human beings today, when we choose to do what we like, how we like it, and avoid what we dislike, we tend to burn the midnight oil and work into sleep later, isn't it? So that's against this clock. And the studies are very clear that that disturbance of clocks leads to a lot of metabolic disease, including lipogenesis, which is fat formation, you know.
Well, I think, unfortunately, that's all we got time for. But this is a fascinating subject. And I do think we've just started scratching the surface. But it's, I mean, there's so much to talk about here, right? And people are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. Whether you're old, young, rich, poor, it doesn't seem to make much difference. Everybody has their own battle against obesity.
I'm just glad that I can now say I'm not overweight or obese. I'm just going through lipogenesis. Sounds much fancier.
But that's the point of World Obesity Day, is to start these conversations.
Yeah.
That's where it all starts, and through platforms like this, broadcasting
and not to be afraid to talk about it, because also there's this thing that's crept in now where people are afraid to even have the discussion. You know, the last thing you want to do is have someone sit next to you on a plane and they're enormous, and now you're just desperate that they don't talk to you or you don't talk to them. It frightens the hell out of me. Like, what's she gonna do when the meal comes? What's she gonna do?
She's gonna eat yours. You should have your own private jet.
What's she gonna do? I should, right? That's a big travesty of justice that I don't have my own private jet. All right. Well, listen, I mean, this has been terrific. Thank you so much, Dr. Sandeep Ruda. It's very nice to meet you. And I love the philosophy angle here.
I got a gift for you, some books.
Oh, more books to read. Your books?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm excited. I'll be sure to share these with the audience. And thank you, Dr. Fatima Patel. It's always nice to see you.
Always good to be here.
Yeah, this is good. So we got lots to think about, everybody, on Obesity Day. World Obesity Day. And you can find out more. Head over to cliffcentral.com, and we've got plenty of other content that you'd be interested in. Plus, we'll put all the links to everything that you've heard about today. All right, that's it. That's all we got time for. We will see you tomorrow.